You're listening to the Big Three of B2B Leadership podcast with Mike Faherty, where world-class business leaders share their secrets for personal, organizational, and market growth. Gain powerful insights.
Welcome to the Big Three of B2B Leadership, where we invite industry leaders to share their thoughts and insights on personal and professional development, developing and maintaining operational excellence in an organization, and of course, maintaining and expanding your company's position in the marketplace. My name is Mike Faherty, and I'm your host today. And also today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Sky Cassidy. Sky is the CEO of Mountaintop Data, a provider of marketing database services for B2B companies. As CEO, Sky oversees the daily operations of Mountaintop Data, as well as the marketing and product development. He's also a host of a really cool podcast called If You Market Podcast, which I've been lucky to be a guest on in the past. Welcome, Sky. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. I'm excited to be here. I love to talk.
That's right. I figured you'd be a great person to chat a little bit about sales and marketing and B2B growth. This is kind of where you live, right?
Yeah, this is what I think about all the time. I get into the data part pretty deep as far as contact information goes. The other night, my wife asked me to put the kids to bed. She said, talk to them about data so they'll go to sleep.
And don't talk to me anymore about it.
And that stuck in my head. Yeah, that was her basic. There's just certain things she's had enough of. She doesn't want to hear about business. I talk about it too much.
I'm sure.
So I'm happy to be here, and she's glad I'm here, so she doesn't have to hear it today.
Perfect. And I love talking about it too. So you can share with me. Just go ahead and open up and share everything that you've been wanting to talk about. That's what this is for. So good. Hey, look, so whenever you sent over your bio information, you put in this line, which I thought was kind of interesting. A lot of people just kind of stick to the high level stuff. And then you threw in this line, I'm a problem solver, tinkerer, and lover of science. I just thought we'd take a minute just to get to know you a little bit. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And kind of where's that come from?
I hate bios. I kind of want to put only that kind of stuff in there. Sometimes it's thrown in as that, like I am I do office ping pong, color commentary, and I just prefer to put in those kind of things rather than saying like I'm a great communicator and the standard what should I put in my resume stuff. And then when it comes to business, other than running the company, it isn't like I have a long list of victories to list off of all my awards and whatnot. So I prefer to put in something a little personal about what makes me me. So that's kind of all that is trying to be a little less business generic and boring.
It certainly isn't boring. I'm curious, whenever you say you're a lover of science, what does that mean to you?
I love science. I love all kinds of things about science. There's just so much amazing stuff. I mean, I guess I'm just saying like the information technology, everything that science brings us, not really talking about getting into the scientific process necessarily, although that's a big thing in sales and marketing. It can be applied really well. But just everything, watching National Geographic with my kids and how amazing stuff is and things about outer space and just about how materials work and all that kind of stuff is so cool. The movie The Martian, when that came out, I think I remember just being so excited because I was like, wow, they just made astronauts cool. I mean, they'd been a little cool, but this is a different kind of cool. This is exciting and really cool. This movie's going to do for wanting to go into space what Top Gun did for the Air Force.
Right. No, it's been a while since being an astronaut was cool. You're right. It kind of had they turned them into businessmen for about 30 years. And so, or at least as exciting as businessmen. So
I wouldn't watch that movie in 4D though. I think that's the one where they introduced the smells in, because that guy, that whole movie's got to stink.
That's right. So if anyone is wondering what we're talking about, The Martian, Mark Wahlberg, right? I think was the...
No, it's Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, that's right. The other
could have been Wahlberg too, though. Yeah, swap him in and out.
Yeah. So, Sky, can you talk a little bit about your background and how you came to, start running Mountaintop Data and kind of where this came from?
Sure. I mean, basically, I got into... I moved to LA to start photography is what I got a degree in college. I got a college degree in photography, and I got a job in a marketing agency to kind of follow that. that didn't pan out. And eventually I realized I'm not a very good photographer. But I had developed all these other areas. I'd started getting into startups a lot with the photography and photography related startups in the early 2000s, doing photo sharing sites and apps and stuff like that. And so I think it was really the startup area that got me interested in this stuff. And then a marketing agency went under that I was at, and we had developed these techniques for developing data because we needed to develop leads for telecom companies and these high tech companies. We had a lot of people cold calling, and we found it was more efficient if we would append emails to the lists and send out email content. Because no one was doing that kind of B2B marketing at the time, it was very effective. And when that company went under, me and my brother started another company just doing that list stuff. We said, hey, this is something people really want and need. Let's so it was kind of the origin story of we found a better way to do something and then started a company doing it and just grew it from there. And then I did a whole bunch of stuff in the company, but I only took over as CEO in like 2016. So I'd worked around doing sales remotely while I was still pursuing my career in photography, and then eventually doing the marketing, moving through departments, trying to figure out what needs to be fixed here to make this more successful, and then eventually moving up to running the show. So that's a pretty
That's awesome.
detailed synopsis of my progression
No,
here.
no, that's great. It's interesting. So you studied photography in college. I studied filmmaking, believe it or not. So here we are, a couple guys talking about B2B marketing on a podcast. It's crazy. So
Turns out I'm way better than this at photography.
yeah, well, I'm way better at this than I was ever at acting or directing. So I can assure you that. So, um, I was curious. So, what do you see as the biggest challenge that B2B companies are facing today as it relates to growth?
So something, I don't know, I have so many little snippets here. I'll try to focus a bit. But
Mhm.
for sales growth, when I was doing sales and I started managing a sales team, and I had two paths I could go down. One was I'm going to hire a new sales team and train them really well, because I didn't feel like our current sales team was just kind of cobbled together and not well trained. And then I came up with this concept or I could hire people to just do lead generation. So our salespeople are selling and our lead gen. I thought I came up with this concept. It was, a decade plus old when I was developing it, and improperly developing it. And I even decided, well, let's not do that. We just need more sales. So I'll hire the sales team. I chose wrong there. I should have created what I was calling a farm league, what other people in the industry who'd read the books I hadn't would have called sales development reps. And I think that would have been a much more effective and better path to go down. But kind of companies want sales. That's the number one thing they want. And what I kept coming around to in our company is, how do we get more sales? How do we get more sales? And solving all these different problems in all these other places. And so I kind of looked at three areas that need development that aren't obvious. So going out and just hiring more salespeople is probably one of the worst things companies can do, if they don't already have these other areas handled. And the first one is just the product. And there's two areas I like to look at the product. One, is there a tweak you can make to the product that allows, because all the product has to do is allow your salespeople to get in the door. If you're selling frying pans, you have to have some advantage to yours versus theirs. That's it. Some reason that they should let you in the door. Maybe it's a whole new thing, or maybe it's just some detail that's added on by marketing that doesn't even really do anything, but it gets salespeople in the door for that initial conversation. That's what they need from the product. And then people think of like, hey, I want to come up with something innovative, but customer feedback isn't enough because they don't know what they want. The old, like, you want a faster horse, not a car, or they wouldn't have known to ask for the iPhone. I don't think that's the right way of looking at it. I think the quickest way to either come up with these little tweaks, and sometimes it's just a wording change, sometimes it's a feature, sometimes it's a whole new product, is to talk to the customers. As much as I think the customer is always right is a terrible thing to say, I think if you tweak that a little bit, customer is always right basically means I don't trust my employees they're too stupid, so I'm going to make them default to the customer's right. If the employee knows what they're doing, the employee knows more than the customer, hopefully. But when it comes to product development, I'd say the customer input is always right. And that's where, like, hey, you go out and ask people, what do you want for transportation? Oh, they say a faster horse. And people think that's the customer getting it wrong. And that's why you shouldn't interview customers. And it's not important if you want to innovate. Say, no, you're interpreting their information wrong. They want a faster horse. Okay, everybody's doing a faster horse. How are you going to beat that? You're going to make something that goes faster. You have to mentally dig in deeper to the problem that they're trying to have solved, or the issue that they have, or the solution that they need, and not be so freaking linear about it. It's like, really, they want a faster horse. So you're just going to say, how do I make a horse go faster? Like, why do they want a faster horse? You have to dig into their feedback and not just take it on face value. Again, you're just being a stupid employee, and I guess should default to the customer's always right. But if you have some actual mental capacity to develop something, look at what they're saying. I've had customers give me so many good ideas early on, and I wasn't willing to listen. You know, I remember interviewing a customer because I was looking for, like, what product do we need to develop? And I asked her, like, if you could have anything, just any magical thing. I was trying to get like some magical idea within this space. What would you want us to provide you? And she said, I would want to know when people are ready to buy. And I think I was asking the right question, but I wasn't interpreting it properly at all. Because I just thought, like, oh yeah, that's great. Good one. What I didn't realize is this was years before intent data came around. And what she was asking was for intent data. And if I had just looked at it and said, how could you tell? How could you get an idea of whether somebody was ready to buy or not? How could you tell if they had any intent? Like, somebody else had the same conversation with a customer and developed intent data. And if I had been listening and then using some intelligence to process what the customers were saying, I could have developed that product long ahead of time. So that, you know, sometimes it's just a little tweak, sometimes it's a whole new product line. But if you listen to your customers, only takes a couple conversations typically to get something that you can process into something amazing, as long as you have the mental ability to make those multiple steps forward and take what their feedback is and ask questions about it and distill it down into something that then you can solve that problem in a unique way, instead of just, oh great, here's a new horse whip that might make them go faster.
There's a book that's getting a lot of press right now in Silicon Valley called the Mom Test. Have you heard of the Mom Test?
You say the mom test?
Yeah, the Mom Test.
Oh no, now I'm embarrassed. I haven't heard of it. I'm not a big.
I just discovered it. Who knows? Maybe it's been around for years and I'm just finding it. But I kept hearing it pop up in conversations and in posts and things like that. I finally went and checked it out. So what is this about? And it's one of these great books where there's nothing in it that's new, other than just telling a story the right way, and then you hear it differently for the first time, and suddenly it makes something make sense that you already knew, right? And his whole point, if I can accurately summarize, is when we have these ideas, and it's really geared towards startups, right? And that's the audience for this, is someone who's thinking about starting a business. And a lot of times they go in and they say, well, I've got an idea. I'm gonna go ask my mom, like, hey mom, would you use an app if it did this? And a lot of moms will say, well, of course I would. That's great. Like, yeah, that sounds really neat, right? They're like, sold. Like, look, my mom even thinks it's a good idea, right? But they don't realize that they're asking a question and they're leading the person to give them an answer, right? By who, in this case, who they chose to ask the question of. This person wasn't objective, right? And they had other motivations. So how can you ask questions that remove any of the motivations, remove the leading of the witness, if you will, and just ask really simple and really truly open-ended questions, and being okay with whatever it is that you hear, right? And instead of listening for the thing that you're looking for, like, this is what reminded me of it. That's what you were doing, right? It's like, what's the magic thing that you wanted? You probably had 2 or 3 ideas. You were hoping that she would say one of those 3 things, and you'd be like, see, it's validated. Let's go, right?
But or she's your mom. She'd probably help you hide a body. Like, that's right, the worst person to ask. What you need is, I have a weekly call with basically a stranger. It started out, it was a Zoom meeting that was designed for demos, and it wasn't very well set up. And this one guy kept coming back every week, and then we just turned into a weekly call. And the awesome benefit of this is because we have no connection outside of that call, we can say anything and ask each other anything. And it's like a stranger on a park bench. Like, that's who you should run your app by. Sit down next to them on the bench and ask them about it. And if they say that sounds interesting, tell me more. Now you got something.
Well, hang on. I'm not going to let that go. So every week you have a call with someone you have no idea who they are, and y'all just chit chat.
Well, I mean, we know who each other are and what the companies are, but when it started out, it wasn't designed or set up for anything. It wasn't. It was just like, oh, you want me to show you the app again, or let's just chat about something. And we had questions for each other, and
That's
it just
great.
ran from there. Yeah, it's it is good.
There's an idea that I use a lot with clients called vision reengineering. And it's not my term, but I read it somewhere a million years ago. But it's about this idea that you're talking about, that the faster horse scenario. Sometimes the customer doesn't really know what they want. Like, it's hard for them to articulate it because they don't know what's possible, right? That's why that analogy has always been so great. It's like, I want a faster horse. Well, they were trying to communicate, but they didn't have the words for it. They didn't understand what was possible. So in their mind, because they've got a limited view of what's possible, I want this thing that I know about to just do something faster. And they don't realize that there's other completely different ways to approach that problem that can help them get from point A to point B in a faster, more efficient way, but they're just not aware of it. So that's,
and it's typically just ask the question, why?
Yeah.
Here's what I want. Why? And then that will get sometimes in one simple question to the actual thing that they want.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to get to the next town in 20 minutes, not in 20 hours. And you're just like, oh, okay, probably wouldn't take 20 hours, but
I use a similar analogy with people to sort of describe this idea of a latent pain, that if you were trying to go from point A to point B, I'll make it simple. You're trying to get from point A to point B, and you had a car, you'd figure out all these different ways to try to get from point A to point B faster, maybe from home to work faster, right? I would take a different route. I buy a faster car. I decide I'm going to risk it in the speed or run red lights or whatever I'm going to do. And they're working on this whole thing, and they figure out, I've explored all the different options. I know exactly the fastest way to get from here to there. And then they brag to their buddy in the cube next to them, say, hey, look, I'm getting to work in 12 minutes now. It's amazing. Hey, it was 18 minutes. Now it's down to 12. And your buddy in the cube next to her says, man, I got to work in 3 minutes today. It's like, how'd you do that? He said, well, I have a flying car. Like, wait a second. Like, wait, I didn't even know that a flying car existed. I didn't know that was an option. And now this is what I call latent pain. Now I'm pissed off that I don't have a flying car. And all I needed to be was exposed to the idea that there was an alternative way to do it. And then suddenly it's a pain for me, because now my problem is acute, because I know that there's a better way to do this. And I got to figure out how to get it.
But then I tell you, I got there in no time at all. I remoted in, and I'm not even wearing pants.
Right.
You're like, what?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yep. No, I see those kind of solutions. I want to get from point A to point B. I want to travel to the moon. Okay, great. You don't need to actually get on a rocket ship. What you need is virtual reality with some sort of a sensory suit where you can actually feel things that are going on around you. Why travel there? You only need your mind to travel there. Why do you need, the remote work? You only need your mind to be there, right? Do you need to actually stack bricks? Okay, well then let that VR interact with an actual live robot on site. Why do you need to physically go there? There was a movie years ago where people would be living within these robots, and they would plug in all the time. And what drove me insane about it was, I remember it was Bruce Willis. I was really excited when I saw the movie. I was like, oh, I love this kind of sci-fi science I'm into. And I thought it was going to be this, like, hey, you want to take a vacation in the bottom of the Marianas Trench? Okay, great. All you have to do is you just VR into this robot. You don't actually go there. The robot goes there. In the movie, though, they had people's robot selves riding the bus to work. And I was like, why wouldn't you just leave the robot at work? All you're doing is plugging into it. This doesn't make any sense at all. It's like saying I want to go to the moon and or the bottom of the Marianas Trench and actually getting in a submarine and going down there and then connecting or connecting to the robot and then having it dive down. Like you just leave it down there. It just needs to be in the site already. You don't have to like have it travel. It's so bizarre. But those kind of solutions where it's like, yeah, here's what I want to be at work. Okay. Do you need to physically be there? Why not just remote in? And then there's things you lose and gain, and sometimes you want to be there physically, but it's like, yeah, I need to be at work faster. Okay. Why don't you rent an apartment above the office then or across the street? Why are you living a 2 hour commute away? If you want to be, if that's your big problem, there's other solutions for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about marketing a little bit. So one of my favorite questions is, what do you say to people that claim cold calling is dead? What's your take on cold calling and its imminent demise over the last 20 years?
I would say diminished for a while. It's like saying reading is dead because we have audiobooks.
Right.
That the art is not dead. Door-to-door sales is dead. Yeah, to a sale. It's not even that's a terrible analogy because cold calling is very much alive. I think people say those kind of things to get attention in their headlines. It's why every other book has the word breaking in front of it now, which doesn't even make sense most of the time, or killing or something like that. It doesn't even make sense. It's just I'll put this word there and people will pay attention. But cold calling is critical, making that contact, visiting people in person. It really depends on the value of the sale. I think the area that cold calling is or should be dead is on the cold part. The warmer you can make the call, the better. I mean, traditional cold calling was probably before my time, but if you look at a great movie like Pursuit of Happiness, you're just given a list and there's name and a number and that's it. Okay, have more information and then it's not as cold, but you can't spend 10 minutes prepping for every call with somebody who doesn't know who you are. So it's how can you speed up that process? We have a service that we do. I'm going to shoehorn in here now. And we were doing it for our sales reps for the longest time. When I took over the team, it was we give them lists from our database and too many of the numbers are bad. Too many means just, a small percentage, but still they run into a disconnected number. Somebody's not there anymore. How can we give them stuff that's more accurate? And what we found was similar to the original lead gen I was doing at the marketing agency, send an email first. And it has a lot of great purposes. One is just the email bounces and you find out why have a rep bother to call this person? They're not there anymore. And so you remove that negative part of the cold call. And then the email gets to them. They click, they open, and those are the people we would push through to the sales reps. Only people who interacted with an email first, because it scrubbed the contacts. We knew they were actually there now. And they had actually seen us already and interacted with some sort of content. So in that sense, I'd say, hey, at this point, maybe it's a warm call or just not quite as cold. So in that sense, cold calling is dead. Yeah. For sales reps, maybe it should be dead and SDRs should be handling it all if you have enough team to do that. But reaching out to people and talking to them is, one of the top ways you can make contact in a lot of verticals, a lot of jobs. There are certain jobs where that position just doesn't make themselves available on the phone, particularly these days. So good luck. You have to reach out to them in some other way because they just don't have a phone connected at their desk, maybe that kind of thing. But no, cold calling's awesome. It just has to be enhanced a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I find that it's harder to reach people, and I think that that's true. If we're being honest, I think it's harder to reach people than it was 10 or 20 years ago. I think that that's probably not debatable, but more of an onus is on the value of each interaction. So if I know that it's going to be harder to reach these people, then I have to be totally prepared to have a conversation whenever I do reach them. And it's got to be a powerful conversation. It's got to be well done. It's got to, it needs to have everything that would go into a great conversation. I need to be knowledgeable. I need to be friendly. I need to be confident. I need to be contextual to the extent I can in what I'm talking about with them. Am I talking to the right person about the right sorts of things? so that I can get a high conversion on that conversation. If I can get a high conversion on the conversation, then I can talk to fewer people and still be successful.
Yeah, don't suck. If it works, it's not dead, and it still works. I think it's like saying email's dead. Why? Because it's not nearly as effective as it was when we first started, and nobody was receiving emails offering stuff, so they were receptive to it. It's the everything in marketing is a secret fishing hole. And then there's just the wide open lake that everybody goes to and it gets stalked every once in a while. And if you're lucky, you'll catch a minnow. But then everybody's got their secret fishing holes. And once you find out about one, you just fish it to death. And that's what happens with a lot of these things. But some of them are so effective, they're not gimmicks. The gimmicks get fished to death. Doesn't work anymore. You can't just put re in front of your email and get everybody to open it and read it. But the good ones have staying power because they actually have value beyond the gimmick. And email's not a gimmick. Phone calls are not a gimmick. Live events are not a gimmick. Those are all things that people have problems they need solved. That's why companies exist. They go out and they solve a problem. Back to the original, your product. You better solve a problem. And that, that's how you're going to get in there. So I always say I receive emails that I respond to all the time. Every once in a while, a call, not as often. Because our company buys stuff and we have solutions we need. And when somebody emails me about a new something to do with data and lists and verification of emails, maybe, hey, we have a new tech. Okay, tell me about it. I want to hear about it. That's my job. I tell people every once in a while, look, if you don't look at this, you're not doing your job. This is your job, right? That's never my opening pitch, but and yes, I still do some sales. Yes. So it's like, this is what you handle. We have something new in this area. It's your job to look at it. Or is there somebody else's job this is? All right, let's do it. Let me show you. I'll be quick. I'll be efficient. It'll be worth your time. We have a great new thing here. And that's the product. If you say we have the same thing as everybody else sells you, it's a commodity, there's nothing different, let me talk to you. No, nobody's going to talk to you. And that's why I say that foot in the door. You have to give sales something that makes them get in with that cold call, something that they can at least say they have something different. If they later find out it isn't really that different, or they don't care about this little tweak, your sales guy already got to have the conversations. And that's the hardest part. Every customer, every prospect is the only girl in a singles bar full of 200 dudes. And they are getting approached constantly about the exact same thing. And if there isn't something to make your pitch different and more interesting, there's just no way to get enough. You can always get some sales. That's what I say. You want sales growth. You want actual ability to grow as a company. You have to have those aspects. It isn't just, hey, but some of our sales guys are doing fine, so this can't be the problem. I thought that early on and realized, no, the product is the problem. Yes, our great salespeople with the whole pipeline set up are doing okay, but we're not going to replicate that with cold people off the street. The product has to be easy enough for an average person to sell and get ramped up and successful before they decide to quit or decide to do what's the new phrase now about quitting, where they don't quit, they just keep taking the money and not doing any work, type quitting.
The quiet quitting.
Yeah, quiet quitting.
I don't think we're going to find many SDRs or quiet quitting. It's one of the places where you by the end of the day, you'll know that someone has quietly quit their job as an SDR. So it's not going to work for every job.
I feel like asking everybody in my company to sweep the floors every once in a while now, just to find out who the lazy bastards are. So we can get rid of them. Oh, thank you for now voicing the fact that there is no place for you here and you're a complete waste of time and have no desire to work your way to the top.
Yeah.
Quiet quitting's great. People are just raising their hands saying, I'm a loser. Get rid of me.
It's the not my job syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that business marketing people, business owners, marketing leaders are making when it comes to emailing new or cold lists? What are some of the things that just when you see it, you just shake your head or maybe even piss you off?
Oh, the number one is they buy a list from a company like us that sells lists, or the big name people recognize, Zoom Info. People think list companies and they're like, oh yeah, these guys are terrible. And then you say Zoom Info and they're like, oh no, they're legit. Oh, DMB. Oh yeah, that's a real company. Like, well, there's a lot of companies who do that same thing. It's just if you don't recognize the brand, then it's looked at differently. But anyway, so you're getting a list, a cold list. You need new people to reach out to and sell to within your target audience. So you go out and you get a cold list, and then they take that list and they throw it into their Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever, Pardot, any of these solutions that specifically say this is for opt-in data. And maybe the list company they're buying it from will actually lie to them and tell them it's opt-in because they know that's what they want to hear. But it's not. And they're going to have a high bounce rate and high unsubscribe rate on their initial sends at least. And that's all it takes for these platforms to say, oh, you're going to hurt our deliverability for all of our customers because you're not following the rules, and they're going to kick you off the platform. And half the time they don't have any patience at all to say like, oh, did you make a mistake? Okay, well, don't do it again. No, they're just like, why would we care about you? We make, $13 a month from you or whatever some of these platforms cost. An individual user is not worth any damage they might create. So they use purchase lists just straight from the person, throw it into their marketing, send it out, and they get their marketing shut down. That's the most frustrating one, because then they come to us upset, like we did something wrong. We tell them, look, we try to advise you. There's platforms you can use with cold lists. There's platforms you can't. We developed a whole new product to address this problem, where we manage the sends for people and basically do a super soft initial touch just to clean the list down and give them that same call list I was talking about earlier for SDRs, where they've interacted with an email in a non-negative way. And now you can filter them down through your funnel to the next step. And that first step from a cold list and what that first really soft touch does, again, analogy wise, you're not going up to the girl in the singles bar and asking her to go home with you. You're just saying, can I buy you a beer? And half time you're not even doing that. You're just saying, I bought you a beer here, and walking away. And then you see if she drinks it. So that kind of gets them ready to then get put into the initial, the next stage of your sales and marketing. And that narrows it down typically like 99%. So you're scrubbing out a ton of the people who were not interested, weren't quite the right target. It wasn't the right time. They weren't even there anymore. Through that one simple step. But yeah, I'd say getting the initial outreach wrong and wanting to immediately try to do lead generation with a cold contact is a huge mistake. It's going straight to cold calling, saying, here's some list. Let me just start dialing these people completely cold. That's a waste of time.
Right. Well, what's your take on buy it or build it? Obviously you sell data, so you'd love for people to buy data from you, and I certainly buy data from time to time because it makes sense a lot of times. But if you were starting a business from scratch, let's say you were a startup, and would you invest in try to cultivate your own list and try to create your own contact strategy, or would you skip that step and go straight to purchasing data?
I actually have, for when you say buy it or build it, I have a thing I've developed for when you need a solution. And I always say, first you have to partner with people. You have to, use something out there that's free. You look for these other solutions first before you build it yourself. Is actually one of the last things that you look to do if these other things don't make sense. So really you look at what fits for you. If you're just starting out and you need people to reach out to and you have no budget, then you're not going to buy it. You're just going to go out and do the trench work yourself and get a hand. If you're ready to scale and you have a couple bucks though, it comes down to what's your time worth, and you should know what it's worth. How much business on average you close in a day? Okay. Now what's your time worth? And then is it worth it to buy a list or not? And I would not recommend anybody that's, plugging around here and there to get their first 20 sales or something like that, go out and buy a list on an unproven product and that kind of stuff. Look information up online, call companies directly from their website, do that kind of thing. Now that's really small and low. Any company that has a budget and anything going on should be buying data, unless their market audience is so small that they can go out and research the 100 companies that they could possibly sell to and know everything about them. There's a complete waste of time to try to manually build the list yourself. Like, why would you do that when you can just get a list of all the information from many, many sources, including us, mountaintopdata.com. Like it's a total waste to build it yourself, basically.
Yeah.
As long as it's achievable. There's some lists that just can't be found. They're too niche. There's very specific things, and you have to go search the internet for certain forums or something and then build it out from there. But again, if you can find it and it's for sale and it's cheaper than building it out yourself, and now you can actually focus on selling it to these people, then absolutely. That's why our company exists, because it's a waste of time for people to go and individually try to build out all this info themselves. Data is not easy. When people try to do it themselves, it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's hard. I've built a number of lists over the years myself, and it rarely feels like it was worth the effort. So I totally understand that.
If you think a list you bought has a lot of bad data in it, try building it yourself, and then you will be thrilled with most lists you can buy. There's really garbage companies out there too, and they'll have just hideous, terrible data and be a waste of your time. So you have to do a little screening, but you can get a sample from a data company really easy, and then just look at it, make a couple calls. You should be able to tell if the sample's been stepped on and they kind of had hand selected contacts that they pre-verified because they only gave you 3 records or something like that. But it's pretty good to find a couple good data companies. You really only need one, and there happens to be one on this show today. So just come to us.
That's right. That's right. That's why you're here.
I say you only need one, but I actually recommend people have several if possible. Because it's not like girlfriends where we get upset if you have another one also. They're like, no, great. You have more than one source. That's fine. Yeah, my grocery store doesn't get mad if they find out I went to another grocery store.
Right. It's funny you talked about like the first 20 customers. That's a mistake that I see so many businesses make early on, and that they're so enamored with the idea of the unicorn, right? And that they're going to be the next greatest thing. And the only thing between them and $100 million company is just, as soon as more people hear about this, it's a done deal, right? And that might be true. The solution might be just that exciting, but where I see the mistake being made is they try to skip what I call hand-to-hand combat phase. And there is a season where hand-to-hand combat is required to really refine the business. You're going to learn, hey, do I have this thing priced right? You're going to learn what the competitive landscape is. You're going to learn, I thought I was selling to this guy, but I'm actually selling to this guy. Slightly different. They sit in the same office building. They're 3 doors down from each other, but it's a different guy. And if I'm pursuing the wrong person with my message, it's not going to resonate as much as whenever I talk to this one over here. And so there's all this learning that happens that just, you can't skip it. I had a customer tell me once, he said it takes 9 months to make a baby. He asked me how long it was going to take to build something that we were working on for him. And I said, look, it takes as long as it takes. And he goes, it takes 9 months to make a baby. And in some cases, there's an element of that you just can't skip every step. And the things that you learn about what resonates with customers, what messages really get people excited, what pain points they're willing to spend money to solve. You can think you have them worked out, but until you talk to enough customers and go through the whole motion where the guy struggles with, yeah, you know what, you're right, and pulls out the checkbook and writes the PO, right, or whatever. Like, until you get people all the way there where they're giving you money, you haven't solved it. If you talk to a bunch of people that tell you I would pay for that, then say, please write me a check, and a lot of those people, well, not right now. But,
And then are they going to pay for it again too? Because people don't realize, like, I spent a lot of time in the startup area, and it ended up being fun for me to go to some of these startup events and just see what people were doing. And it was just this mental thing of sitting there and finding like sometimes 3, usually you only need to find 1 to mentally move on. But like why is this a terrible idea and going to fail? Why is this a terrible idea and going to fail? Why is this? And it came with experience because I've been involved in a handful of startups, and you just see these spots where, because they didn't have experience, they're the blind spots. Like, oh, they don't realize this is unscalable. Or a lot of people have this business idea that is the secret fishing pond, with like, I found a secret fishing pond. I can just sell this to everybody now. And they don't realize, look, once you have 5 people there, it's fished out, bro. It's gone. Like, your idea kills itself when you try to scale it to anything. You can't. It's unscalable the way it is. You got to find another solution for this, maybe. But there's just all these reasons things might fail. And yeah, you say the hand to hand, I always call it trench work. Like, you have to get into the trenches. And what happens in trenches? Hand to hand combat. That's what happens. You have to get in there, because then you find out all the things logistically that need to be worked out. You find out all these issues that your pie in the sky idea of your unicorn turns out it was just a dead cat in the alley. Here's all the reasons it's going to fail. And sometimes it's just also too much work, and you find out it's you. You're like, oh, I'm not willing to put in the work to make this succeed. And if you're not getting in the trenches, you're not willing to do the work, and that's why it's going to fail. So congratulations. Even if you had a great idea, if you're not willing to do that, it's almost like it's the table stakes. And a lot of investors probably would look at it and say, oh, this person wasn't willing to do this. The idea might be great, and maybe I'll offer it to someone else, but this guy is not going to make it succeed. So I'm not giving him any money, because he didn't bother to do the work to find out all the things.
Right.
Even if you happen to get lucky and have that idea, that's a great idea. But you aren't going to do all the work. An investor will look at it and be like, so this guy had a lucky idea, but he can't pull it off, or she can't, this person can't pull it off. So still going to fail. I can't invest in this person just because they got lucky with an idea.
This is the big three of B2B leadership, and the big three are personal and professional development is the first, and the others are, of course, growing an organization and growing a market. I'm curious, if you have any what I would call personal development disciplines that are part of your regular routine that have served you well over the years that you might want to share.
It's funny, you mentioned the mom test earlier, and how really what the book did for people is like saying the same stuff, but it's trying to get people to have an epiphany about something that's probably a common saying or thought, where you actually say, oh, it's diet and exercise, and then they actually apply it. I have a whole bunch of those kind of things that I've learned and written down so I won't forget over the years. The number one that I keep coming back and trying to impress on people, and it fits that mom test very well, is never letting someone else be the reason you fail. And I think it's one of the main traits of leaders, whether they know it or not, and also of great employees. And the best analogy I've come to help, and like I'll tell this to my 4-year-old, to help people try to understand what I mean by that, is that in their life and in your life and in your game, you're Mario. Everyone else is a character in the game, and they're all on autopilot. And if you run into a turtle and die, you can't get angry at the turtle. You can't blame the turtle. You can't blame the computer programmers. There's one character that can be controlled, and it's you. It doesn't matter what everyone else in the game was doing. You have control of you, and that's it. And so it doesn't matter how difficult something was, or how this, or oh, it's unfair. This, I expected him to do this, but he did that instead. I got screwed. No, you're Mario. You're the only Mario you have. You've no control over any other character in the game, but you do have control over you. So whatever happens, it's your fault. You could have done something different, or next time you should do something different. And you can learn, and that's fine. But if you blame it on that damn turtle, and then you're just going to run into the turtle again. Like, you have to take whatever happens, even if it was a random act, and say, okay, next time this. Okay, next time this. And you have to fix it yourself. Another analogy I use is NFL quarterbacks are great, because they take the great ones to the extreme, that they may throw to their top receiver and he drops the ball, and they may not give him the ball the rest of the game. Well, why wouldn't you give that guy the ball? Like, look, it's a critical time. I throw in the ball. He's having a bad day, maybe, and I have other choices. I'm not going to be sitting there at the end of the game saying we would have won if this guy had just caught the ball. I'm going to take it out of his hands literally and give it to someone else so that that is not the excuse why we lost. I'm going to give us the best chance. And just, I know something else is going on over here potentially. I don't know what all the details are, but I'm going to take another route to make sure I win. And if I don't, it's because I threw the ball to the wrong person, not because that person dropped it or this happened or, oh, this or that. It's like you get a lot of bites at the apple and a lot of chances. You have to adjust your actions to make sure the outcome is always because of what you did and never because of anything else. And by that, I mean, it doesn't matter if it is because of something of anybody else. It's still your ball. You're still Mario. You are the only one you control. And when looking at stuff that way, it's never this person didn't do this, that person didn't do that, this isn't my job, and all those kind of things. It's here's the goal. I want to win. What's going to give me the best chances of winning? That's what I'm going to do no matter what. I'm never going to say I'm waiting for somebody else, and that's why this didn't happen or something like that. I'm going to make sure stuff happens. And then it becomes much more difficult to lose when you have that approach to things. Okay, I need to win now. How? Oh, I forgot this. Damn. What are you going to do to make sure you don't forget stuff next time? What are you going to do to solve these? You're just constantly solving your own problem of all the failures you have every day until on average you win all the time.
On average, you win all the time. Hey, I'm sure
Tom Brady doesn't win every game. Not every,
but on
Michael
average,
Jordan didn't make every
time.
shot. Yeah. I have another thing I say, and some of these are just sayings where I say, excellence is consistent competence. That's it. It's not hitting a home run every time at bat. It's not, in fact, the people who tend to fail that actually have talent, it's because they're trying to hit a home run every time because they think I need to be amazing. So I have to try to hit a home run. And you're striking out, most of the time. And it's like, no, you just have to be competent all the time. And then you will almost always win. It's Tom Brady throwing the ball away instead of throwing a pick because he's got another drive. Don't worry. Most of the time, you're going to end up winning. What gives me the best chance of winning? Not how do I look amazing right now, which ends up, crashing and burning so often. So yeah, I'd say excellence, consistent competence. Stop trying to be amazing. Show up, do the work, get in the hand-to-hand stuff. And then over time, people look at these people and they're like, wow, how is The Rock so amazing? How's that guy so big and buff? One of his movies, it was a line in a movie, but the guy asked him like, oh, you used to be, he was a fat guy in high school. And what happened? What'd you do? And he's like, oh, it's really easy. All I did was go to the gym every day for like the last 12 years and watch what I eat and boom, boom, boom. It's like, yeah, that's all he did. And each day was really easy because it's just, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out today. But he did it consistently over time. And suddenly you're The Rock. He didn't like do some magical move one day and his muscles all exploded. It's like, no, it's consistently going and putting in the effort every day, not some miracle effort, but just, your above average effort every day, and it adds up.
All right, be Mario, folks. That's it. That's it. You heard it here first. So, look, Sky, thanks so much for joining me today and sharing your insights with us. Hey, I know you have a special offer for the audience that you sent to me beforehand. Can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
We're a data company. We have this platform called Top Data Search that does kind of that, allows you to search data, find contact information to reach out to your sales and marketing. And it's free to sign up. It's always free. It's not a trial. You only pay when you need to buy download credits, but we're giving 100 download credits to anyone that comes on from your show at you go to mountaintopdata.com and there's links to sign up everywhere, but use the promo code ProSales100 and we'll give you an extra 100 free download credits on that.
That's awesome.
Also, we have this top funnel service that we developed that warms data up for people and gives a flow of this active data. It's a new product. We don't even have a page on our site, but we have a couple PDFs up. We're about to raise the price on it because we realized it's way better than we thought and we way underpriced it because it does take work as well. But if anybody is interested in looking at that, we'll keep the pricing the same for a while, or especially for your people if they come in. And I don't know, just reach out to me. If you look on our site in the what area is that in? In the resources area, it's called Top Funnel Email Service. There's information there, including pricing. But you can always just reach out to me and ask about it as well, and we'll maintain our current pricing as a benefit for your listeners.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for doing that. And also, folks, remember Sky hosts a really cool podcast called If You Market. So you can learn more about that at ifyoumarket.com, YOU market.com. And you can check out his podcast there. Lots of really good stuff. He talks to some really interesting people. And of course, we're going to include all of Sky's contact information in the show notes on our website when this is posted. So feel free to go to prosalesconnection.com, go to our podcast and look for this one. And you can find all of Sky's information there as well, and how to reach out to Mountaintop Data. Look, if you liked our conversation today, I'd be really grateful if you could give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review on iTunes. Taking just a few seconds to give us some love there has a huge impact on our ability to reach more people and share this really awesome content. So thanks for listening. And folks, remember, B2B leaders grow companies faster when they focus on the big three. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Pro Sales Connection is a sales and marketing firm that has been helping B2B companies grow faster since 2009. Learn more about our proprietary fastest path to revenue process for B2B companies. Experiencing the possibilities begins with a short 15-minute call. Schedule yours at www.prosalesconnection.com and click Get Started.